How many games would Lance need to win to justify starting him? Assuming he does start week 1 and Jimmy Garoppolo loses his competition because Lance looks more accurate. How many games does this kid need to win for it not to be a controversial decision in hindsight? Waruna.
I think minimum 10 games. The reason is last year that even with everything, we won 6 games. Jimmy won 3. The rest of the squad, CJ and Mullins combined, won 3. So, but what we all felt like, at least we had a quarterback like Andy Dalton. We could have easily won 10 games. The other thing is like special teams screwed up so much last year. We can't do the same mistakes over and over again there. So I hope that they will correct that mistake. If that happens, if we take, someone who is capable for punt returns, kick returns, correct over there, and Kyle Shanahan stop doing some ambitious play calling. And most especially this year, our schedule, we have 5 games with teams who are finished 4th in their division last year. That Kyle Shanahan play calling, he needs to be some kind of in the preserving mode, not ambitious mode. So those 5 teams, road games like Bengals, Denver is in the chat, but Lions, so we can win these games. So I think 10 is a must. If we can't win 10 games, even with injuries, I'm going to call it. Even with injuries. If Kittle miss 8 games or Bosa miss the entire, I don't care. You need to win to basically justify that Trey Lance is worth these 3 first-round picks. 10 is the minimum.
So I think there's 2 different ways to classify that question. Is how many games does he have to win for the coaching staff and the front office to be satisfied? And how many wins does he have to have for the fans to be satisfied? So I think Waruna there is a little bit of the fan of him is coming out asking for 10 games. Because, we have Jimmy Garoppolo on the roster, and people think Jimmy Garoppolo could win 9 or 10 games. So I think that's going to be the expectation for Trey Lance from the fan base. But I honestly, from the coaching staff and the front office, for them to feel justified with the pick, I really don't think he has to win more than 2 or 3 games. I think the bar's a lot lower there because they're already invested in him for the next 2 or 3 seasons. They've already traded away the draft capital in those seasons to get Trey Lance. So I think no matter how he performs the first year, it's really not going to matter. They're building for the future with Trey Lance, and they want to have long-term success with him. So to me, there's the 2 different win totals that he needs to reach.
Yeah, well, I don't agree with that at all. I think the 49ers. I think if the 49ers, in order to feel justified with Trey Lance, if they were only to come out and win 3 or 4 games this year, I think that Kyle Shanahan would be pounding his head against the door at the end of the season. Because that would just be an all-out failure from an organization to have used their number 3 draft pick on a quarterback, start him week 1, and then finish off 4-13. So I'm more in the ballpark with Waruna, where I'm going to say 10 is the minimum. I think as far as what you would to be able to justify it, because you got to remember the whole reason for going out and getting Trey Lance is because you feel that you were losing games because of the quarterback. You felt that was really your biggest issue, and so you've got to, in order to justify whoever it is that you're playing, if it's not Garoppolo, has got to go out there and win the games and prove that he's better than Jimmy. So I'm saying 10. Even if at 10-7, the 49ers make the playoffs, and I think if the 49ers make the playoffs, they have a chance to make some noise once they get there. So I'm going to go with 10-7. Lock it in.
So, how many games does Trey need to win to justify him starting? I mean, it depends if 40% of the team is on IR again. Probably not as many games.
That's
I
true.
think it's all about the context of the situation. So I think, to me, the minimum threshold is something like around 500. I think if the team were had won 6 or 5 games and then Trey started the whole year, that would be not great overall. But I think even if the team is 8-8 or 8-9, 9-8, 10-7, sort of in that range, and Trey shows a lot of promise and he looks much better than Jimmy Garoppolo looks, then he absolutely does justify what the 49ers gave up for him. I think it's more about the feel of Trey Lance rather than how many games does he win or how many games does he lose. Now, I'm not saying he can go out and lose a bunch of games and it'll all just be okay, but if he looks better than Jimmy Garoppolo and the offense looks better and Kyle seems like a much more happy play caller and the team is going in the right direction, I don't think fans would be that mad if the team just missed the playoffs and they were 8-9 or 9-8. I don't think it would be ideal, but I think it would be a much better situation than they are in now, which is a starting quarterback who isn't going to win you the Super Bowl because he's being paid so much money. So I think if things are just going in the right direction, then I think this justifies the trade and what the 49ers gave up for him. It's all about the field more than anything to me.
See, I think this is the issue with starting Trey Lance. The fact that there are expectations for this team. I think that the expectation is this is a playoff team. So the answer is however many wins it takes to make the playoffs. If they win 10 games and miss the playoffs, fans are going to be pissed. They're going to be pissed, and there's going to be question in the organization, well, would we have went to the playoffs with Jimmy? There's going to be those questions. There's going to be those questions in the organization and in the fan base. And although I'm all gung-ho for starting Trey Lance, we have to be honest that he's walking into a situation where there's a ton of pressure in a way that Trevor Lawrence isn't, Zach Wilson isn't, Mac Jones isn't, Justin Fields isn't. Like those teams, those guys aren't expected to start. I mean, the two, Lawrence and Wilson, are expected to start. They're not expected to win right away. Fields and Jones aren't even expected to start right away. So Lance is in a situation where if he plays, he damn well better make the playoffs. Otherwise, the Niners could have always just stuck with Jimmy and seen what happened. You know what I'm saying? So I think the answer is if he starts, he's got to make the playoffs. And again, I think Kyle Shanahan's going to feel confident he can do that because he did it already with RG3. Did this. And that team in Washington was not as good as this team. So,
but I just think if he looks better than Jimmy, I think that alone, it's not enough to justify it. But I think like what you're saying, Grant, is the fans would be questioning, would we have made the playoffs with Jimmy? If Trey looks that much better, I'm not saying it doesn't matter altogether, but I'm saying if things are heading in the right direction and he's that much better than Jimmy is right now, I don't think the fans would have as much of an issue with it. I mean, they missed the playoffs by one game. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world if Trey Lance looks awesome. That's my opinion on this matter.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you anymore on this, Ben, and Chuy also, because again, this is Grant's. Everybody expects this to be a team that's going to be competitive and be contending for the Super Bowl. And you have Jimmy Garoppolo. So if you're going to not start Jimmy Garoppolo and you're going to start Trey Lance, you better damn well make the playoffs, because if you don't, there's going to be hell to pay. Because I understand that in our chat or whatever, you might see a lot of folks that are saying, go ahead and start Trey Lance.
Yes.
He's the future. I'm going to be happy about that. But there's a lot of Jimmy supporters out there as well.
And they're being quiet. They're just waiting. And as soon as as soon as Trey Lance shows any vulnerability, it's like, wait a second. I'm telling you, this happened with Colin Kaepernick and Alex Smith. When Colin Kaepernick started going downhill, Alex Smith, diehards came out of nowhere. Like, I didn't know he had so many fans. They were like, this is exactly why I said they shouldn't move on from him in 2000. Well, that happened. So I'm just saying there's a lot of Monday morning quarterback. Finish us off, Chewy.
Yeah, so the reason I disagree with Jack on this, respectfully, Jack, is Ben did a little bit better job of explaining this. When we look at last season, even the best rookie quarterback last season was Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert didn't have a winning record. Justin Herbert won 7 games with the San Diego Chargers. They had Tyrod Taylor on the roster to open the season, and he ended up, having the weird
5 games.
Lung.
I thought
5 games. I thought they were
7-11.
7-9.
Anyway,
it doesn't matter. But does anybody upset with Justin Herbert at this point? No, they think he's going to be a superstar quarterback. So if Trey Lance goes out, shows the flashes, sort of like Justin Herbert did last season, 49er fans are going to be upset. The ownership isn't going to be upset. They're going to say, hey, we got the guy, and he's the future, and everybody's going to be excited going forward.
That's true. But the only way that Trey Lance plays like Justin Herbert and the Niners win 5 games is if the rest of the roster is trash. Or actually not, because I think that the Chargers roster is fine. I just felt like Anthony Lynn was in over his. I mean, how did he only win 5 games last year? So maybe that would be a bad sign for Kyle if Trey Lance goes out balls and they win 5 games. That would be bad for Kyle, I would think. But I don't think that.
I think you have to go back. I don't really think there was a whole lot of people beating on the door before the start of last season, though, also saying that San Diego was a playoff caliber team. I think that, that's the other part of it, because Tyrod, what did Tyrod Taylor done in the NFL to really? I mean, I know he'd won some games and had one decent season with Buffalo, but beside that, he hasn't. He hasn't a guy that has the backing that Jimmy Garoppolo has amongst the fans. So a big portion of the fan base right now. I think that's the big difference here.
That was a good discussion, Chewy. Good job. You were the one who disagreed with us, and it's always important and necessary to have someone who disagrees. I go on a lot of roundtables, and it's all 5 people being like, "Yeah, I agree with the last guy. He really pretty much summed it up." Chewy, thank you. You did a good job. No, I'm serious. I can't stand shows where 5 people agree with each other. It always takes guts to be the one guy who steps out. You did a good job. I'm just giving him positive reinforcement because I want that on my channel. Thank you.
Oh, that's
Jay says,
fantastic.
Yeah, good stuff, dude. Jay says, guys, patience. Agree with Jed. We need an insurance policy for the quarterback spot, so we do have to carry Jimmy Garoppolo until we are certain Trey can be a great passer. Or Josh Rosen. If you got Josh Rosen and Trey, you don't need Jimmy Garoppolo. That's where I just want to see a little bit of practice time, preseason time dedicated to the backup quarterback competition, because even if Trey shows he's ready, who's the backup? You know what I'm saying? Like, you might have to keep Jimmy Garoppolo unless Josh Rosen looks good. So, good point, Jay. David says, why expectations for playoffs? Last I checked, they finished their last in their division, or did the 20 season not count? Well, I mean, Nick Bosa's coming back. There's that. They got Trey Lance. There's that. They're talking about playoffs. Their expectation. I think the expectation should be playoffs. No? Year 5 of a rebuild?
Yeah, the expectations of playoffs. Look at everything. This is really the whole revenge tour times 2 with everything they've done to bring back these guys in the secondary, and especially in the secondary, and all throughout the roster they've done this. They've built this team up to try to be a playoff team now. They expect to be a playoff team in 2021. So yeah, it's going to take some. I don't understand why you would think that the expectation isn't to be in the playoffs.
Yeah, if you can't expect a playoff appearance from a regime that's in year 5 of it's like, how many years do they need to lay the bricks? How many years of bricks by bricks does it take before you make the playoff consistently? That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's the expectation.
Yeah.
Well, they're building a
argument
skyscraper, Grant, so it might take a little bit.
So what are you gonna say, Waruna?
Other argument is this. This team went to 2019 Super Bowl, and the team is the one that said it will be on a revenge tour. Yeah. And they are always saying they are playoff caliber. They just need the quarterback. This is what team is saying, that we are ready. We are ready to win now mode. So it's not the fans, that came from the team. So that's why we expect them to do better. That's it. You set the standard, now you deliver.